For the latest top tips, reviews and advice, please subscribe below.
Hello and welcome to Attwoolls Outdoors with me, Mike. Today I'm giving you a bit of a review video on a awning from Dometic. So with me here today I've got the Rally Tour poled models. So we've got currently just showing the 390 Rally. So it's almost worth saying the Rally Tour takes over from the Rally Pro that we've kind of known for over 10 years now. So what kind of Dometic want to do is give it almost like a new Elisa life, tweak it, and actually the main thing is obviously is changing the fabric, hence the name is now moved to Tour rather than Pro. So Tour fabric, naturally, as it kind of suggests, is more meant for touring use. So a few nights here or a week here, a week there. So it's a real nice, kind of very robust fabric. It's still a 300D, so same kind of thickness as we've known and loved before. Difference now is actually got a ripstop fabric running directly through it. So technically it's a little bit stronger, a little bit more technical. And the other thing as well, it's probably one of arguably Dometic's biggest criticisms in the past is the ability of fading. So what we've got now is now uses what they call like a dope dyeing system. Essentially what it means is we are dyeing the yarns before it's woven and spun into a thread and then obviously made into the fabric. So the classic kind of analogy I love to use is the difference between, say, a carrot and a radish. Radish being kind of colour on the outside, pure white on the inside, as the old Pro fabric was. Now with our carrots we have the colour all the way through. So the reason this is important is because obviously if once the awning's up, it's exposed to UV sunlight, it kind of brittles away the outer side of it as well. So you find it just strips out the coating so you get the core on the inside. So with something like this, for example, it means that the colour stays true. And mainly I will also say that the fabric is a little bit sort of dulled down a little bit in terms of its colour. So it's a quite happy and neutral grey. So that's going to help with fading, but the way they've obviously dyed the fabric now also makes a difference. This in the Pro, what it was known formerly as a Pro, now is a Tour, sits above kind of their normal Rally range. So you almost have Rally in the pole selection and then Rally Tour. The main fundamental differences between the two are the framework itself. So what we find here is we've got an aluminium frame, so the aluminium uprights, but also more importantly across the top. Whereas you look at the lower level range, what you do find is actually it's a fiberglass top, so that's a key fundamental difference. Another key difference between the two models is the fact that the side panels are removable, meaning that you can add annexes onto it, so you can extend onto it on either side, and if need be actually interchange the side panels. So rather having sort of the entrance door at the back next to the caravan, by switching them over, it means there's doors at the front. So again, a bit more versatility. Of course, it's also a slightly thicker fabric, like I sort of mentioned, is a fringe D rather than kind of it's more like a, about 175D, 150D. So it's a much more substantial fabric, so you get a longer lifespan of it, a bit more wear, and because now we've also got ripstock in it, it's a bit more robust. We've got 3 guide points on the front. You can also buy some additional storm straps, which I would highly recommend basically to give it its sort of torsion across the width. So that I think is a very worthwhile doing. We've got adjustable legs on each side, so if you're on an even ground, you can more than happily adjust it. And you can see from our own pitching video, it actually didn't take me that long to do. I think in the region of sort of 15, 16 minutes. And because obviously in comparison, I think it's quite nice in comparison to an air model for those kind of traditionalists or those who don't want to feed or don't trust air or maybe want just something a little bit lighter. That's where I think personally the Tour model comes into its own, just because you are not feeding the framework in with the canvas when you're feeding into the rail. So, and because also on this model you can remove the front panels and the side panels, it means that you've almost just feeding a little bit of fabric directly in. So if you are a little bit older and not necessarily as strong, that's probably the easiest way you can actually feed it, and then you just feed the poles through. The poles actually, although they're aluminium, so nice and light, they're still quite strong, and there's also like a little button clip on there. So they're pre-angled, so each pole assembles into one another, so that way you keep this curve and it gets a nice sort of strength. And then the button clip goes in, so again it doesn't twist. So it's really quite nice and nicely designed. Clip's obviously very easy to sort of get the tension onto it, and then the clasp at the bottom works well. On the main 4 corners, so the back 2 next to the caravan, the front 2, you've got this kind of orange webbing strap. Now that's basically the points you've got to peg to get yourself sorted. So the thing that also is quite different is the fact this is the 390 model. The previous 390, when it was in the Pro collection, actually was 3 front panels. So having 2 nice big open panels works really well. This is available in a 200, a 260, a 330 and a 390 width. So depending on how wide you want to go. It's actually a standard depth of 2.5 meters. Another big key thing in comparison to This, in comparison to the old Pro model, and more importantly the normal Rally, is naturally now we've got the height adjustment system on this. So it's something that actually has been in Dometic's range for a while in their air awnings, but now you've got the capability of extending it. So this actually will fit a motorhome as well as a caravan. Its height range is basically from 235 to 265. As you see it, how we house it here at 235, there's a little zip located here. Best way to think of that is almost like it's a little expansion, like a suitcase, just to increase it. So what I can do is open up this. So there's an internal and external zip, and that will then expand that up. So by doing both of them, you change it from being with the zip closed to 235 to 250, which is going to fit pretty much all your caravans or even your low profile kind of motorhomes. And with it open, you then go from 250 to 265. It's a really nice way of keeping it nice and neat. Still fits, because you've got the baffle, and it's a nice, it actually sort of really minimise the baffle, so it just blends in really nicely. It works nicely. Apex ventilation at the top here as well, so that helps with airflow to keep it all sort of fresh. And certainly one thing, again, was definitely a big kind of problem generally was condensation within it. Because it's a non-breathable fabric, you're always going to have that issue to a certain extent. But so having big apex ventilation, and more importantly, mesh window and door on one side, it helps to obviously circulate the air and means it's not sort of stagnant, moist air. So we have got a doorway on, like I said, on both sides. Both of them are mesh, but there's only one window. So one has a normal PVC window, and this one has a mesh window. So you can obviously help for airflow. So this becomes almost like a full-on mesh panel. You've obviously got your weatherproof cover, which you can zip it up, and there are curtains inside. So that's one thing you do find, that with nice big PVC windows, helps to get plenty of light inside of it. There are curtains on inside. The other thing, because you've got different zip pullers, what you can do is kind of create a little bit of a veranda setup. So you can have airflow in, but still necessarily keep things like the dogs and that quite nice and neatly, or grandkids for that matter. So having those extra zip pullers makes life a lot easier. Quite a small pack weight, and because again, in terms of pack size, you've got a nice easy carry handle bag. As standard, you get a draft skirt included with it. The wheel arch cover would be an optional extra, but let's kind of move round and inside to the awning and talk through a load more features that the Rally Tour has to offer. So now inside the Rally, you probably appreciate for kind of your internal space you've got here. Having that sort of standard 2.5 metre deep means you've got an ample amount of room, quite happily have a table and chairs in here. Also, you can pretty much, because it's a porch awning, go as wide or as narrow as you really want onto the vehicle itself. So you can dictate it depending on what you want to go for. We can also see actually the PVC windows, which we can get plenty of light down to, and also we've got the curtains here as well. So the curtains actually have changed for the new season. So for me, I quite like them because, firstly, the fabric is a much softer fabric, not like a sort of horrible shower curtain, which arguably was in the past. So that's a really nice improvement. And also the runners are a little bit different. Actually, again, there's no real plastic in there. What you find is actually there's little kind of plastic clips. There you go. So it's like a little sort of white runner, and then it's just like a little hook that goes directly onto it. So much easier to put in. So you just basically hook it over, and you're good to go. Button clip keeps it all retained when you want to kind of keep it neat and tidy. You can obviously get that across to get the privacy. There's a little webbing tab just there, so kind of keep it tighter to the panel. So it's like tucking it into bed. There you go. So you can go and obviously get an element of privacy there as well. Mainly because you've got a slightly sloping front, it will get a little bit of lean, but you will get the coverage that you kind of do need. As standard, comes included with bracer bars across the width, so you get two bracer bars. One for the front section, i.e. above my head here, and a second one in the roof section here. So that helps give it obviously great strength. Now if you wanted to beef it up, what I would recommend doing is buying what they call some monsoon poles. So a monsoon pole essentially is like again, fiberglass pole, clips onto this, goes over the top of this point here, and slots in up the top here as well. Helps to, because it's certainly a wider span, even with the 390, but even on a 330 or a 260, it's going to give you an extra bit of bracing, helps get that a bit more of a fall in the roof, so any sort of water, if you do have a slightly heavier downpour, will quite happily glide itself off, but structurally adds a little bit more strength to the awning as well. Also located up here is what we call the accessory track. So it's a little bit of beading that you can actually put accessory items onto. Again, something you won't find on the normal version. So you have sort of hanging storage pockets. You can have little rails. So you can kind of, your rails, your oyster really in that sense as well. And there's also a clip located up here for a hanging pole that can go front to back. So again, you can use that for sort of drying towels and that sort of stuff. Also, what you find with the toys, you've got an optional roof lining. So if condensation is a bit of a bad point, or you want to add almost like an insulation layer to it, what you can have is little white tabs by a roof liner, go nice and neatly in there as well, and just also hides the framework, just looks a bit nicer. So again, that gives it more of a cozy kind of feel. We've got sort of skirts around everywhere, so nicely peg, and you can tuck that underneath kind of optional breather carpets. What I always sort of say is like there's sort of bread and butter items you always want to kind of go with, or so what you get included with the actual awning itself would be your draft skirt, your pegs, your ladders, obviously the poles, and you get your main kind of free guide points. Now, personally, my kind of must-have items would be the storm straps for one, definitely a must. Secondly, would be some sort of flooring if you haven't already got some. A wheel arch cover, depending if you've got a single or twin, is always a good south bet. And more importantly, is sealing it against the side. So I would recommend getting some upright poles. Basically what this is designed to do is push this sort of foam pad hard against the caravan just to minimise the draft coming down the outside. If you really want to, you can also buy some additional what are called limpets. So there's some pre-punched holes in the side here, help to sort of sucker it to the side of the vehicle. Now, for me, I would recommend looking at this. I'd always go for the poles, but also I'd say limpets are quite nice to help seal it. If you're going for one or the other, I'd always recommend poles. That was definitely what I would look at. And because of also this fits moto models, I think really you've also got this part at the top here actually velcros off. So if, for example, you've got a wind out, you can go into a wind out because it's also got a 4mm beading, well, a 5mm and a 7mm, so it can fit into a roll-out canopy. You can actually open this baffle up so that velcros off. So if you're, for example, your wind out's not dead against the bodywork, by opening this velcro bit at the top, you almost take that sealing gap, and that also helps with the poles. And there's two kind of points located there, and you'd use the outer one for it. It's again something we can go in more detail if you have any more questions about it, but a kind of a general view, it works really nicely. So we've got this little baffle again. That's the internal baffle for it. As previously mentioned, the doors can interchange. So rather than having the side door there, it can be where I'm sort of at the front here as well. Nice big window on the side, helps obviously to increase sort of vision, but also airflow with that mesh side as well. In fact, let's bring the camera in just to get a bit more of a better feel for it. So as we kind of come in, firstly we can sort of see how the sort of roof section is really quite nice and bright. You've got those extra sort of lugs for hanging pole if you wanted to, so that works really well. There is also these parts tie on, so that's where the pole goes through, just a little tie keeps it nice and tidy, but that's your extra hanging point for the loops. And as previously mentioned, we've also got a point there for a rail, and then we've got pockets to go against side. Pre-punched holes, as previously mentioned, to get the seal against it, and we've got the little skirt point. You can actually see kind of the ripstop material actually, and how that looks. Again, it's quite nice and technical. The poles quite nice and sit up into this kind of extra point directly at the top. But it works really well. I think flows nicely. The curtains, again, in terms of the runners, are a bit smarter. So again, it's more like a little kind of part, so you can see how it kind of hooks on. Again, that's a big, massive addition from my personal point. As we kind of come in, I think it's like how it sits. You've got that apex vent located directly at the top. Sits really well. You know, I think you look at kind of the shape of it, and you've got the pre-bend, you've got the solidness of the aluminium. Also, you've got the guiding points down the bottom, so you can see the orange tabs. But I think it sits and looks just bang on, really. I think the light fabric, obviously, is going to help, certainly from the UV point of view, and not looking so faded. But because you've got that kind of extra dyeing technique with material, it should look sharper for longer. And also, I think the little pop of the orange on the pullers just matches in nicely with the points down the bottom. I think it does kind of tick a box. And the other thing as well, because you've got no extra flap on the top, it will fit into quite a nice little rail. The thing I think for me that is a real big point is the fact if you've got, say, like a Cato van or something along the lines of that, in theory you could go for a 330. I think that's the one key size I think would work really well, just because I think you've got if you've got a 3.5 metre cassette, with a 330 you can actually open the sliding door fully within that section. It's a really nice static awning. It's not air, so because the problem with air models, you have a beam that sits underneath. With this, there's none of that issue, so you would open up, and I think that for me is the absolute the golden crown, and one thing I probably think that works really nicely. So, because it's not really a good awning on the market for a catavan that's fixed, you know, poled be it or made, but even so. But I think generally on the whole, I do like the Rally Tour. I like the new additions and how it's definitely a much better version than, say, the Pro previously was, with obviously front panels removable, the curtains updates, the curtains themselves updates, the height adjustment. We've got obviously the pole where it interlocks is a bit nicer. Again, the colour fastness, there's a lot more going on here. So I think you do get your money's worth by going up to this model as well. And it's differences obviously from the normal Pro'd version, the more price pointed stuff as well. So I think it sits its a real nice kind of point in the market. So for more information, check the link below this video. It'll take you through to our website. We've got more information on things like pack sizes, floor dimensions, individual features all listed for you as well as the pitching video that we've done and the packing video more importantly as well. But hope it's been helpful. Feel free to let us know what you think in the comment box below. It's great to have feedback from you. And that is on all our little video review on the very exciting Dometic Rally Tour in the Pold across the 200, 260, 330 and 390 size. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again soon in our next Attwoolls Outdoors video review.